Great to be here. For starters, we have had product light on fire before, so good job. Always good to not have product light on fire. So we've heard a lot tonight about raising venture capital, which congratulations to all of you. About 95% of companies do indeed raise venture capital. But what happens to the other 5% of us? Well, I'm here to tell you, luckily, that we don't just go Oliver Twist. There is a success story. And so this actually, the title is called Stop Thinking Too Much About Scaling, but it's actually a story about lessons learned from bootstrapping. But before we get there, okay, this is the very first lesson that I learned that's very, very important. And that's if you want to look like the smartest person in the room, always be the person that's asking this question. Will this scale? No matter what it is, it's apparently applicable to absolutely everything, okay? We're implementing a new inventory management system. Will this scale? Okay. Our sales are up 40% from last quarter. Will this scale? Can we get more tampons in the ladies' room? Will this scale, people? Okay? And very important, never ever pose it as a genuine question, okay? It's never, oh, interesting. Will this scale? No. Much more accusatory and rhetorical, okay? Will this scale, okay? So while you're all practicing that, I'm just going to give you kind of the quick background scoop, all right? So about 6 years ago, we invented this product, kind of giant nerd tool. It's a 3D printer for electronics. Not interesting unless you're an engineer. We did get a few great prizes to go along with that, and it has really helped us kind of essentially become the 23rd most highest growing company in Canada. But the journey to get there was a real long one. And so basically, this bagel, do you know what this bagel represents right here? It represents basically our sales. After we had launched our Kickstarter, I had just gone to Canada, or to China, to do a manufacturing run of V1s, and basically came back like, everybody wants a V1, and you want a V1, and you want a V1, and you want a V1. And this is where our sales were sitting at. Couldn't eat bagels for a year. And basically, we were sitting here and we had two options at this point, all right? We can choose to go out, allocate all of our energy and resources towards raising venture capital like everybody else. Or, we can choose to sustain ourselves off of our own non-existent sales with a 6-month runway. So naturally, we chose option 2. And you know what? We learned a few things along the way that we actually still foster to this day 6 years later. So for starters, take what you can get, people. Really, beggars cannot be choosers, okay? So create a business model that can generate revenue very, very quickly and identify those customers that are really, really easy to access, okay? And then use them to identify new markets afterwards, okay? So essentially our journey to identify new markets looked a little bit something like this, okay? We started off with the hobbyists and the makers, as all hardware companies tend to, inevitably, to find out that they can't really afford any of your products. Move on to the academics, inevitably, to find out that, they just got really long sales cycles. They're great customers, they got the budget, they got the need, but 90-day sales cycles when you're bootstrapping doesn't work too well, okay? Moved along eventually to industry professionals, sold from startups to medium-sized companies, all the way to Fortune 500 companies, to find out essentially, oh wow, there was a lot of features missing from the product that they needed. But you know what they said? They said, we'll pay double for it if you can include these. So we included them, then we charged them double. And then eventually learned how to scale by essentially opening up our channels to distributors, channel partners, and finding out how to access geographical areas. And we're now selling to well over 60 countries, so that's great. I assume that everybody's revenue curves look like this. Can we get that back up there, right? That exponential revenue growth, that is what scaling looks like after all, isn't it? Well, I got a trick question for you. I've always wanted to use Ralph William in a slide. So would you rather be a $50 million business that is operating off of 1% margins, or a $5 million business operating off of 50% margins? It's not a trick question. One is 5 times more profitable. Which leads me to my next point, all right? Design with profit in mind. I hear companies all too often talking about scaling their revenue, okay? When you're a bootstrap company, all right, you become absolutely obsessed with optimizing profit, and that's because you're literally using it to sustain yourself down the road, okay? Which means not only getting really, really good at having customers give you money, but becoming really good and creative at cutting costs, okay? So reflecting on your bill of materials, finding out where you can trim costs there. Reflecting on your sales activities, okay? Finding out, are you getting a proper return on investment there? Okay, we were able to optimize our profit margins to 78%, not only from selling, but from cutting costs alone, okay? Of course, build good products. So when customers are your only source of capital, okay, you become very, very good at making them happy, which means constantly opening up that communication loop and that feedback loop between you and your customer. Finding out, what do they want? Are they happy with our product? What do they want to see in future product iterations, okay? And finding out who your super users are, okay? Forced software registration is a beautiful thing. And it really, really sucks when you're on like the end side of that, when that software pops up and they want your email address and your social insurance number and all that. But when you do want to track product usage, it's absolutely beautiful, okay? So just looking at these analytics alone, we were able to identify our super users, okay? And design an entire product roadmap for those super users, keeping in mind, okay, that it's often that niche market that can be the gold mine, because that's where you're going to have the perfect product market fit, okay? Building a team with grit. So this is by far one of the most important points, I think. So when you can't offer, explosive hockey stick growth and catered lunches and dinners and water slides, one thing that you could be sure of is that people are going to be there for the right reasons, okay? So before you go too crazy on hiring and scaling your teams, ask yourself, what type of people do you want at your company, okay? Apart from just skill and talent, okay? What is their purpose there, okay? Be sure they're there for the right reason, because I can tell you 100% it's people with grit that are going to be your most valuable asset. Okay, so that question again. Well, I think kind of with this constant message of scaling, it's really easy to get carried away, okay? And potentially scale broken processes, potentially scale broken teams, broken cultures, broken financial models. And I mean, we've all heard our share of like horror stories when you scale a broken financial model, right? But I think it's important to keep in mind that before scaling the engine, you need to make sure that the engine is well working and that it's well oiled, okay? And so I guess with that in mind, my biggest takeaway from sort of scaling an organic bootstrap business and having to heavily rely on efficient business models, efficient and productive teams and people, good product, happy customers, all right, is just take a step back from thinking too much about scaling at first and really think about optimizing. Thank you.
Questions? So I'll ask while we wait. Who's your biggest customer segment?
Our biggest customer segment?
Yeah. Who'd you find?
Sorry, what was that last one?
What customer segment did you find?
Oh, actually, industry professionals. Yeah, they are by far the biggest. Startups, medium-sized businesses, all the way to Fortune 500 companies.
Great talk. What was some interesting or innovative ways you guys cut costs and optimized?
Oh boy. Okay. So, I mean, regular meetings, like this is back in the day, like really back in the day. It's like prehistoric right now. Like regular meetings, we're getting the founders in a room, okay, and looking at all of our costs and looking at all of our cash flows, and was basically like, all right, so we got 6 months left to live, okay. Jesus designed faster, James build faster, Alroy run faster, Cat sell faster, go, But it was actually taking apart every single where we were spending on absolutely everything. Okay, if you're a hardware company or bill of materials, you'd be surprised on how much you can cut down if you actually look at every single item. Every single item, you'll be able to trim hundreds of dollars if you optimize on those items. If you're doing a lot of sales activities, okay, making sure that you're constantly reflecting on those sales activities to make sure you're getting a proper ROI there. So back when I was kind of silly and naive, I used to go around with this product, right, and do like in-person demos, you know, to like one singular customer, you know, for a $4,500 machine. You know, I never really did the math to be like, this took me 2 hours, you know, what kind of ROI am I actually getting to an individual demo here, right? So getting a little bit more creative with how you can scale that experience of a customer seeing, you know, a live demo or something like that. So just being sure that you're getting a proper return on your sales activities is a huge one.
Last question.
Do you have a CSR program?
What? One more time?
A CSR program.
Yeah, we do. Are you offering? Any other questions?
One last one right behind me.
So when you were at that fork in the road, venture capital, bootstrapping, how did you choose between the two options, and what were the reasons for the bootstrapping?
You know what? Everybody around us was raising, absolutely everybody, that it almost just became the norm. Like that's kind of like just the thing you do. You run to San Francisco and you really kind of like desperately get investors to give you money, which, don't get me wrong, can be a great option. It wasn't a great option for us because of the nature of the product. It was very complicated and it catered to a very, very specific audience. Your investors, of course, have to believe in your product and it has to resonate with them, right? Not a lot of investors were, you know, into circuit board printing and circuit board design. They just didn't understand it. They didn't have the industry background for it. So given the nature of the product, the fact that it was complicated, the fact that we were just like completely exhausted raising and trying, we said, hey, we got a good product. Let's just try to get out there and see what we can do ourselves.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.